The next thing I'd like to do is invite our guest speaker, and we are really pleased to welcome one of the people who keeps the train running and everything secure in our city, Herminio Rodriguez. I understand is 25 years in IT experience, 7 or 8 years with the city. Prior to that, he was with Rutgers University. And just in spending a little time with him on the phone, I get some sense of what he's up to and his grand plan. So he knows that our practice is he speak to us for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have some time for questions. So without further ado, if you'd like to stand or sit over here where this will be, okay, and view both of that camera.
Thank you.
Take it away.
I need a second to get my technology working. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I look forward to having a good discussion on information technology. My name is Herminio Rodriguez. Thank you for the introduction. IT director for the city of Sarasota for about 7 years. Before that, I was IT director for the Division of Life Sciences at Rutgers University in New Jersey. Decided to make the trek down here. My parents had retired to Miami 3 or 4 years before, and I was looking around, and it's the best decision I ever made. Love Sarasota, and I still cannot believe that you can drive down to work in November with your windows down. So really, absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our digital transformation. I brought some agenda items that I wanted to share with the group, and then David asked me to cover some. I'm going to go through in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I can talk a lot about IT, so it might go a little bit longer, and then I'm happy to discuss anything you like in the Q&A section. So everything you do in IT today goes back to connectivity. And that connectivity is all, at the end of the day, there's a cable that powers that connectivity. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is fiber optic cabling in the city. When I first arrived in 2014, the city had a fiber optic ring, and it had about half the city-owned properties connected to the ring. So I worked really hard to get additional properties connected. We have them all connected today. We got the Van Wezel, which wasn't connected, municipal, RLT, and facilities, the new facilities building. Those were all connected to at least Comcast lines. So by having a fiber optic ring around the city and all our properties, we can really, there's a lot of things we can do. When you hear the buzzword smart city, all that means is the infrastructure that's in place to capture all the data coming from the devices, which is called IoT, Internet of Things devices. All that stuff has to come back to infrastructure. And then you collect that, and that gets displayed to a human via dashboard. So the very first thing is the fiber optic network, and we have invested heavily to do that. In addition to that, we actually have 2 internet connections at the city now. At your home, you have you have a modem, and then you have an internet connection. We actually have 2 with 2 separate providers that powers the city with totally different ways to come into the city. So if there's a cut, one doesn't affect the other. And with our fiber ring, there's a lot of construction going on. So a lot of times we can take a cut, and the city won't be down, traffic will be routed another way. So this infrastructure is critical for anything we do at the city. So moving on, besides the fiber ring, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity today is critical because all these resources, once you have data and all these online resources, the bad guys, they want to disrupt it. And cybersecurity is critical to protecting that infrastructure. I'm sure everybody here has heard of ransomware. Do I need to define it for anybody? Ransomware? Okay, so ransomware is how the bad guys, they basically take your data, they encrypt it so you can't access it, and then they ask you for money to release it. So the city was actually hit with ransomware in 2016. And I was new. I've only been there about a year and a half. It was a new budget, but nobody ever thought of paying anybody. We just treated it as we got hit with a hurricane. We went into a disaster recovery mode. We recovered in 10 hours and we kept going because we had the infrastructure to do that. But ransomware is a business disruptor. Again, no difference than a hurricane or a man-made disaster. We have a continuity of operations plan, which we execute. for it, just like anything else. Now, ransomware or anything bad really needs to come into the system, and usually emails the way that it comes in. So we have a third-party email protection system that blocks 84% of all our email traffic before it even gets into the city. So before 84% of everything that's sent to the city just gets rejected, doesn't even enter our system. And then the ones that do enter our system, we have about 15 layers of protection, and just all kinds of things. But basically, we check all the links to make sure they're good. If there's any attachments, we expand them in a sandbox and things of that nature before it gets delivered to the mailbox. And we need to do that to make sure we keep the bad guys out and keep ransomware out and everything else. We use Microsoft Office 365, and there's a lot of protections that are in there in addition to third party. Now, once it gets to the mailbox itself, we have a system called EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response, which is a client installed on every device at the city. And that client has a real-time service desk, I mean, it's a person in America that's looking at that. And if that computer does anything that it shouldn't do, such as talk to another computer or try to copy files that you don't know of, that the EDR provider can actually stop it, disconnect it off the network, and call us. Second, in addition to that, we also have something called an MDR, Managed Detection and Response. Again, 24/7, 365. And what this does is anytime, think of this as if you're in your home and a bad guy comes in through a window and doesn't do anything, hides in the closet. Well, if you live upstairs, you really don't come downstairs often. He hides in your closet. You don't know he's there. So when you go to sleep, when the bad guy comes out, he goes from closet to closet. He's setting something up. And that's typically what the bad guys do. They come in, they don't detonate, they set something up. So the MDR can see traffic internally. Again, goes back to the real-time service desk, and they can call us or actually take action to prevent this. And most cyber attacks are executed Thanksgiving Eve or Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, you know, not during the 9 to 5 when staff is there. So you've got to have eyes. And then we have a lot of other securities, but those are the big ones to kind of protect the city and our resources. Another one that I'm really, really proud of is called MFA, multi-factor authentication. I'm sure everybody here knows what that is. When you have your bank, you type your ID and password, and then you need a text message or an authenticator, something else. We implemented that about 2 years ago. It was a rough thing to do, but we got it done, and we're so much better off because of it. And on top of that, we have security awareness programs that we run all the time. And what that means is we ourselves will send an email, what we call a phishing email, to our own users, pretending to be a bad guy, hoping that they're going to give us their ID or password. And then when they do, we make it a teachable moment, right? We make a teachable moment because, you know, I tell this all the time. You have a house, you have a dog, you have a pit bull, you have a moat, I love saying moat, and the bad guy comes in and knocks on the door. You open the door. What did the pit bull, the dog, the gate, the moat? Nothing, because you opened the door and the bad guy came in. So that's why it's so important to train your users. All right. That's kind of in cyber. We have a lot more, but I just wanted to touch the main elements there with you. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is ERP. That's Enterprise Resource Planning. ERP is typically the largest application that you have in an enterprise. We didn't have an ERP at the city. And this is actually the largest transformational project that we've had. Human resources and finance, they were relying on old, very, very old technology that was what we call legacy. And it was like, it was very outdated, let's say, and all the process of that was outdated. So we went out and we spent a lot of time during RFPs and all that. And we chose a platform, which is called Workday. And then we chose an implementer to help us implement, and then we created a 15-month project. And right now we have re-architected finance from scratch, HR from scratch, and they're going to be digital end to end. We still have paper processes at the city when employees get promotion or move or reports of finance that you have to email PDFs, you have to print, sign, or even if you digitally sign. All that stuff is going to be handled in a single bucket, if you will. So this is totally transformational, and this is part of that digital journey that I explained. very, 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 very hard to do. Not the technology, but getting the workflow behind the technology, the human component, accepting the change, because it's a massive change. But at the end of the day, we're going to be so much better. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Just so you all know, Longboat Key, Bradenton, Venice, and Northport have been on ERP for at least 10 years. City of Sarasota has not. We're just getting on now. But we're going to be ahead of all those. We're going to be way ahead of those. Don't tell them. They're all my colleagues, and we get along really, really well. Okay, so ERP. Oh, okay, so I zoomed it up. Sorry. Okay, so with ERP, the hope is to get all data in a single dashboard so that managers can make real-time decisions, and that's really key. We want management or the decision makers to make data-driven decisions in real time. And the hope is to have everything channeled into this dashboard. So like I say, finance and human resources are going to be done in April. Then we already did an RFP for utility billing. That's going to start in June of 23, and that'll go to 24. And then in 24, we're going to do a work order system for public works, which you guys met Doug, public works, utilities, and parks. They're going to be on a single system. And then lastly, in 25, we're going to do developmental services. All those will funnel into this Workday dashboard so that in a single dashboard, you can see everything that the city's doing. It's difficult to get information. We don't have that now. And this goes into my next topic, which Dave asked me to talk about, which is click to fix. Click to fix. June 16th of 2021, we've been struggling a while to get an application for the city. Applications are very, very easy to do. It's a no-brainer. The issue is the workflow, the back end. How do you get the departments to talk to each other and to work when they're kind of different silos because they do different things? That was the hardest thing to do. But we got that done in June 16th of 2021. Now, we've had 1,986 work orders come in through click to fix so far. And in the last 7 days, we've had 87 work orders come into the city. And of those, 35 have been through click to fix. We're not at the halfway point yet, but we're getting close. So what I would ask everybody in the room, if you could help us spread the word, use click to fix instead of calling the city or instead of sending an email to the city. When you do click to fix, it gets dumped directly into the work order system. And that's what was so difficult. We had to migrate public works, which was on a separate system than utilities, which was on a separate system than parks. And we didn't have a software platform that can do all that. And we didn't have funding either. So we got creative, and as part of our GIS suite, we have a site license for GIS. There's a system there called Workforce that it's a closed system that can do a couple things very well. And we were able to take Workforce at no cost to us and migrate these 3 departments to that, their entire workflow, train everybody. And that's how we were able to launch the application. It all rides on Workforce. Yes, sir.
Just make a 30,000-foot view definition of what click to fix is.
Yes.
The reporting of.
Yeah. So all click to fix is a reporting or a front end for this Workforce platform that the public has access to. So with click to fix, you're out wherever you're at. We have a geo fence around the city. So if you're outside the city property, we won't let you do, but you can take a picture of whatever it is you have an issue with. You pick one of the categories and you hit submit. You can submit it. It goes into a bucket, and the following day, it's only during business hours. We don't check click to fix during the weekend. The following day, a dispatcher comes in. They will take that work order and qualify it, send it to whoever needs to go, and then they will act on it and will actually get resolved. Just so you know, because of the hurricane, we're not fully yet. We're still in hurricane mode, so we're not addressing these. But I think that date's going to come real quick when we'll go back to business as usual. We're going to get much faster.
So reporting the street lights out or stop signs down.
Yeah. Anything that is not working at the city, anything that's not working at the city, you can take a picture of it and send it our way, and you can report it. Yeah, exactly as you said. All right.
Who actually manages that workflow? I mean, or decides which department?
So the dispatcher, each department has a dispatcher. And what happens is when all the work orders come in, all the dispatchers can see them, and they basically take the ones that they own and they assign to whomever. And now the ones that don't get assigned, once a particular dispatch finishes with the workload for that day, they'll go back and they'll take this one because this one's really a county problem. And they'll either call the user back or send an email to the person who submitted it, submitter, and say, hey, that's a county problem, that's an FDOT problem, or yeah, to that effect.
And has there been any update to the email that goes out to the submitter?
So
on the completion that actually gives them the details of
Yeah.
what it was that was done.
So I asked about that, and I actually met with a couple. Yeah, I asked about the problem is that when there's a problem, sometimes we'll get 10 or 15 of the same issue. And they usually will update one and the rest are just put closed. And I know that David brought that up to me and we can have further discussion, but that's what the issue is.
Yeah.
We get 20 or 30 and the dispatchers are people who turn the wrench.
Okay.
And a lot of times they're working on a small device. It's easier to say completed than cutting and pasting and sending away because they've done this 20 times already. But we'll do what we need to do. Okay, so yeah, anyone can submit a ticket, even with their own address. It's totally anonymous, and you just have to be within the city to do that. All right, moving on. So I'm on time. I was asked to talk about 3D modeling. So we're putting a plan together now. I believe, I hope these numbers are right. We have about $1 million in funding, and we're trying to get a grant for another $1 million for a total of $2 million. That's what I was told. So the way this would work is we would get a manned aircraft, would fly over the city and would use something called LiDAR, which is very similar to radar technology, and then we'll create basically like a table like this of a Lego set of blocks. And every building will be a block depending on size. And then we would have to go back and we would have to take pictures of each of the size of the building and drape those pictures over each block to make the 3D model. Now, I was asked about trees as well. We already have a tree inventory. So it'd be very easy to put another layer of trees. We know what the trees are. The only thing we don't have, I think, is the size. So we may make all the trees 30 feet. I don't know if that matters or not. We're still working through that. And I was asked about the zoning text amendment. I know it's being discussed, but nothing has been finalized yet. Getting all this to, what I'm told is getting all this together, once we get the LiDAR data with the kind of staffing that we have right now, it probably is about a 3-year process. That's what I was told. Too far. Okay. Give me a second to.
Now, can I
Yes,
just
sir.
quick ask,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing that, are
Yes,
you
sir.
tied into the thing that's coming up on tomorrow?
Yes.
The, at SRQ, the media studio, are you gonna be going to that? I mean, this discussion on the design.
It's not on my calendar now,
Okay,
but I probably have the GIS team, which works for me, will most likely be there. It's more than one street. On 3D modeling?
yes.
Yeah, so the GIS team should be there. Okay.
You're talking EDCM, is one tomorrow, right? Or is there a different?
No, that's the one that I'm talking about, yes.
Okay, moving on to the city website. I wanted to upgrade the city website. We have something called CMS, a content management system. The way it works is IT doesn't own it. We own the portal kind of, but each department they have responsibility for their particular page. And then each director has to sign off. So when say planning wants to make a change, whomever owns that, they put their change and it goes up to the director. The director has to approve before it actually gets published to the site. So it's not owned by IT. We kind of manage it, but it's maintained by the departments because there's no way we could know everything that the departments do. So I wanted to upgrade it to a newer platform that's kind of forms-based and it's easier to push information, to engage the users a little bit better, but there was a cost to it and we had to make some choices and it didn't get approved. I'm hoping that we can get that approved next year. The next thing is public records. I was asked if I did talk about public records. That thing, thank God, was moved to the clerk's office, totally handled by the clerk, which I'm so glad that Shayla was so gracious to take that. Now, I called them over. We've had 263 public records requests over the last 90 days, and we've had 98 over the last 30 days. Think about it, 98 over the last 30 days. That's more than one per day. Now, they tell me it takes them an average of 1 day to complete each request, but the standard turnaround could be between 3 or 5 business days. We use an application called Just FOIA. We didn't have it. It's great because before it was just basically like spitballing. With Just FOIA, we have a portal where you can capture it. You can see a lot of times the same public records request is made by 3 different people. We can capture the search and just resend it out. So we really like that that software. Okay, I got it. Okay. Okay. Now we also have the public access email portal. That's right on the city website, and that has all the emails between the commissioners. Because one of the questions was, what could you do to speed up public records requests? And we had a problem with that. It was down for a couple of days. It was a hard problem. Microsoft made a change to their security, and it was hard. We got it back, so it's functioning now. That really keeps. Without that, public records requests would have been through the roof. And I'm happy to have any other questions you guys may have.
When you said FOIA, did that mean Freedom of Information Act?
Well, that's just the name of it, but yeah, it's called Just FOIA.
Well,
Yeah.
in the federal government law is
Yeah.
Freedom of Information Act.
Yeah, so it's called Just
That's
FOIA.
what
Yeah,
FOIA
yeah,
means.
yeah. It jumps. Sorry. Okay. One other thing. So I was asked about the staging plans and street sidewalk closures. That really goes through engineering. I met with engineering. If you go to sarasota.fl.gov, the main city website, and you click on the globe on the left called GIS and Maps button, then that opens up. There's about 6 applications there. The one to the left is called Closures and Detours. If you click on that, it'll open up to a map. And that map has shaded areas. If you click on the shaded area, you can actually go and you can zoom in, and it has a lot of information that are some of the things you were asking about. I use north of Gulfstream and the roundabout, and if you open it up, it actually has a pre-phase map, and it has a phase 1A temporary traffic movements, and it's a FDOT project. So what I was told by engineering is a lot of the construction in the city, sometimes it's us, but a lot of times it isn't. It can be a state, it can be DOT, or it can be the county or somebody else. But we have limited control on what's displayed. But this is a great place to go to find information. And I mean, I'm happy to take any questions. I had a short discussion with engineering about that.
Is there any way to subscribe to changes? So when something is added or edited in a particular geographical area, that all changes to the big road? There's an email subscription service I know for different things.
Yeah, I don't know. This is not part of the website. It's part of that GIS graphical information system that I told you about. I don't want to say probably, but probably we can probably make something work. But typically with a map, you go to the map. The map doesn't come to you. That's just the nature of the beast. You go to the map and it displays information when you click on it. But it's something maybe we can look at.
Maybe more earlier in the process
Yeah.
is before someone makes the map change,
Right.
there's a piece of paper, there's a document that's
Yeah.
been approved in
Yeah.
MOT or something
Yeah.
to close the
Right.
sidewalk. How could that posting of that information be added to a page that then you subscribe to MOTs or whatever, things of that nature, staging plans? You know, anytime there's a new one added, they put up there. I know you got development services 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
But in the meantime,
Right. I'm
all
thinking.
development's going on. So
Yeah, my head's spinning. That's what I do. Okay. All right. So very quick. I just have 3 other things, and I'll be done. We have our storage system. That's all the data that we have at the city. We're replacing that with it's called the HCI, a hyperconverged infrastructure. It's basically servers used to be the size of a refrigerator. Now they brought them down to about the size of a pizza box. And there's a lot of power in that pizza box. So everything's been minimized. So and with that, it's going to lower our footprint, less heat, less cooling, and blah blah blah. That kind of stuff. We're happy to do that. We're happy with doing that. We also have backup systems are critical, and we have backups. I don't know how many people in the room know the old tapes, like remember the tapes, the cassette deck tapes. So we actually have those, and we send them to St. Pete. And I'll tell you why those are important. We have our data at the police department and at City Hall. We have tapes to St. Pete, and we have data over a wire at Boston. And then we also have disaster recovery at Boston. That means if the city was wiped out, we can actually run 80% of the city our applications from Boston. That's called disaster recovery. And then we also have backup in AWS, which is Amazon. And lastly, but not least, two more. Our core network, we're upgrading our core now with a new Cisco Catalyst system. It'll be a 25 gig backplane. So that fiber ring is going to run at 25 gigs. hyper fast. We can get data in and out and around the ring very, very fast. Lastly is Wi-Fi in the parks. We actually finished MLK kind of. It's working now. I'm not supposed to tell you that we're testing it. So in the MLK, it's going to be 2 access points, one in the building and one in a pole, where the vendor forgot to do directional boring to the pole. So we put both of the access points in the building. It's working now. Our filtering is good. Everything is working, and we have a ribbon cutting, I think, for the 10th. At which time, then December 25th, they're going to come back, do the boring, and then we're going to move the access point off the building into the pool. But even with the 2 access in the buildings, I walked around the entire park with my phone, streaming YouTube with data off, and I was able, and it worked. Well, all right, that's all. Thank you. That's all I have for you guys. I hope that's what you were looking for. I'm happy to take any questions.
Is there a priority of which park's next? Downtown?
No, it's gonna be the Bayfront next, because it's not us, so the vendor, the equipment that would do Arlington and,
Bayfront?
no, Arlington and Payne, I'm sorry, is back ordered in China. So the Bayfront, we don't have, we have the equipment, but we don't have the circuit yet, but we're gonna put that circuit on December 25th. So what we think happened is because of Ian, Comcast got slammed, and the company that we're using is a subsidiary of Comcast. We think that they took our hardware and diverted it without telling us, because all of the dates were this year, and all of a sudden now it's February 2023, but there's nothing we can do. So that unfortunately looks like it's going to be Bay, and then in Feb of 23, or maybe sooner, then we can do those two. Yes.
You're gonna be the Bay or Bayfront?
Bayfront. I'm sorry, Bayfront. I'm sorry. Yes. Bayfront.
How secure are those networks going to be in these parks?
Very secure. That's a great question. So this is what we did. I don't want to turn. I don't mean to get my back to this. So yeah. So I'm used to it. It's hard. So very secure, because we actually ordered 4 circuits. So each park has their own circuit, and that circuit is totally, it has nothing to do with the city. Totally nothing to do. So each park is self-contained, and we do have filtering services. So we're blocking about 12 categories of bad stuff, and it's totally isolated from the city's network. So from that aspect, and they're monitored 24/7. So if somebody's doing something bad on it, they'll be blacklisted. Their MAC address, which is like a fingerprint, would be put on a blacklist, and they won't be able to connect unless they call a server that's improved that they're not doing something bad. Yeah.
I got a question for you on the click to fix. Some of the services that you have on the app, I've heard from concerns from people. One of them, let's just say you have noise complaints listed.
Yeah.
People go into that, it says to call the police.
Yeah.
So there are other code violations that are.
Yeah.
Are we working on this? I mean,
No.
what can we tell people?
No.
Or take that off of there or something?
Let me tell you what. Okay. So we can't take it off. So this is all legal direction. So we have to work within the legal framework. And the problem is, for whatever reason, I don't understand it, but noise complaints are the police's problem. So if somebody has a problem with that, we still want click to fix to be useful. Because let's say it's the first time you click on noise complaint, it tells you to call there. At least it told you what number to call. It gave you some information.
Right.
But we can't log it within here because the police are not part of this system on purpose. It has something to do with some legal requirement. And with code enforcement, because of that new law they made, code requests cannot be anonymous, and click to fix is anonymous. That's why we can't have it there. So all we could do is point them to where they need to go on the portal.
So the other flip side of that, is anything being developed for that application to be used to tie people in with the police so that things can be reported?
For noise complaints,
Well, it could be anything. Let's just say it could be.
I haven't been part of any discussion. This is the first I've heard there was a need for that.
I think that is something that has been brought up amongst citizens, so.
I'll take that back. I haven't been part of any discussions. I haven't heard anything about that.
Any other board questions? I've got one. Okay. You mentioned about the 3D model.
Yes, sir.
And maybe a 3-year project, $1 million available approximately now.
Yeah.
Is there a rollout of aspects of that being available incrementally over the 3 years, or all or nothing?
So, no, well, that's a good question. I don't have the answer to that. I know we're working on it now. We have a meeting coming up, I think next week, to discuss it. The thing is, they really want to get that grant, that additional $1 million matching funds, but I'm not sure how much we could do with the million that we have now. But the thing is, there's nothing we could do until we get the LiDAR fly through, and I don't know what that entails or what the cost of that is myself.
I think the input of DSCA on this is, you know, there's so much discussion about the comp plan changes, zoning text amendments, building heights, building densities, setbacks, trees,
Sure.
sidewalk widths. And that there's so much angst at city commission meetings, and that I continue personally to make the case that a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Great,
And,
yeah.
and that if residents could see modeling, maybe if there's a focus initially, I'm going to be selfish here, on the downtown area where most, a lot of these issues are, that those pictures and those depictions and those the ability to modify those, and here's what something looks like with a taller building, but more of a setback, and people could visualize that ability to have 3D models, I think would save countless heartburn and dollars and be a real investment.
Yeah.
So
I've heard that, and I've been part of a lot of those discussions. There's challenges on the IT side to get there.
Right.
And once you get there, there's care and feeding for it too. You know, you have to care and feed, because what will happen is one of the buildings won't have the direct shot. And what we have to do is we actually have to use our drones to fly all 4 sides of the building to get that, or some type of high-end photography from the ground. And then we have to drape that on and do that times, you know, a couple hundred times, however many buildings we have. And so we have to take staff to do that, and we're barely keeping up with the workload that we have now. So it really depends on priority and what the
So
decision makers give us. But
your vision, the direction is to do this kind of in-house?
that's
As opposed to,
that's what I've been, that's what we've been
Okay.
talking about, as opposed to outsourcing the whole thing. That's what we've been
okay,
discussing.
maybe we can talk a little bit more of this
Okay.
offline, but I mean, I think that's a major opportunity.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? You covered a lot, and compliments to
I
you
know.
going through, and it's obvious you love your job.
I do. I'm a geek. I can't help it. I'm a geek.
And we appreciate you. Is there anything else, anybody, of our member reps, anybody? And yeah, Patrick.
I'll just say one compliment there. I appreciate you went through an issue with the email addresses of the staff directory.
Yeah.
Online or not, and it won't back out to post them, but if you click on it, you get a nice form.
Yeah.
To submit it, but having the email address allows someone who does have a communication they want to do. Oh, there's a new person in the planning department.
Yeah.
I remember her first name, let me find it, get the whole email.
Yeah.
And then send out your separate message.
Yeah.
So having that
Yeah.
address, I know you have to keep all this bots and so forth. So
Yeah.
that was a good compromise. I
It
appreciate
was, and we worked, and I remember that. The backstory was, we wanted to remove all email addresses, because you have hundreds of thousands of millions of bots out on the internet. All they do is reach for email address, because then that becomes a target. So we're being targeted. So the more email addresses we can take offline, or even put a picture up, because they can't really read images, it's better. But by putting key personnel, not having everybody, that helps keep the city a little bit more secure. So thank you for saying that. Yeah. Yes, sir.
More than likely, next week, the future land use plan is going to be approved by the commission.
Yeah.
How soon are the details of that going to be up on the website?
I would have to talk to planning about that, but if it's what we have now, it should be fairly quick. I don't foresee anything else. So whenever we put something up because of the ADA requirements, and it's a big document, so we have to make sure that it's ADA compliant and it's got to be tested and so forth. That's just the due diligence that we have to do. Other than that, as long as they're not asking for any substantial change, it should be fairly quick. And I can check on this.
Well, thank you. We stayed our end of the bargain, and we promised you about 30 or 40 minutes. I think we've stuck to that. We really appreciate the information will convey.
Thank you for everybody for having me and happy to geek out with you guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks.